Welcome back to a new episode of the Everyday Ceremony. Today we are joined by Kendall, the Raw Advantage, raw food and health advocate, and he's going to be sharing about his life and his journey of cultivating more balance and more harmony in his life, like really leading a life of following his passions, being grounded and staying connected with his presence, and also at the same time living out his purpose, sharing his purpose in a playful and curious and open-hearted way. You don't want to miss out on that, so make yourself comfortable, kick back, and enjoy the show.
Beautiful, man. So one thing I'm actually really curious about, because most people probably know you because of your dietary choices, because of eating
He's loved
raw.
and seasonal fruit.
Exactly. Sugar daddy,
Yeah,
you
there's a
know,
sugar daddy right there.
that kind of stuff. And honestly, that way of eating also contributed a lot of ease and peace and lightness and enjoyment and simplification for me as well. So I think this is a huge part of the way that I want to live. And at the same point, I believe that it's a bigger picture. There's like more things playing into living a fulfilling life than just the foods we eat. And I'm just curious, like, what's kind of your, like, outside the dietary choices, like, what is your overall approach to life? Like, what is kind of your relationship with life? That, again, we can get more into where you come from and what has changed your attitude, but like, where you're at right now, like, what's kind of your approach to life? Like, how do you want to live your life?
Awesome question, man. And firstly, I just want to thank you for inviting me on. Say what's up to everyone. And how nice it would be if you could just, like simplify your diet, or some people control your diet and
Mhm.
everything else is perfect, Like at one point in my raw journey, I really thought that everything hinged upon raw food. And if I just got raw food right, then everything would be perfect. And you're right, it's not really the case. It helps, definitely helps. To me, it's kind of like clearing the layers of perception to some degree, peeling off onion layers, getting you to look deeper at yourself in many, many ways, whether that's mentally, emotionally, socially, looking at things that you're hanging on to that don't really serve you. So it's massive in that way. But it is just one part of the picture. And I know from personal experience, as well as from coaching people, that you can be on the ideal perfect diet, but have other lifestyle factors out of whack and not be exhibiting great health, or just wellness and feeling good in general. So many people like to put one thing up as the supreme. Like yoga is the number one thing. As long as you do yoga, you're healthy, or running, or whatever, right? And it's the same within raw food. And I totally agree. It's not 100% true. For me, the way I kind of look at it is loving yourself, thought, word, and action. And I look at feeding myself with raw foods as loving myself in action. It's like a choice that I can make every day that gives me love, but there's other ways to love yourself, right? Getting enough sleep, not being hard on yourself when things don't go the way you like, or if you do something that you deem is not optimal. uh, Fostering loving relationships and treating others as you want to be treated, so that you invite that back. It's can be done selfishly, or it can be done somewhat selflessly. But I do believe what Marshall Rosenberg said. He doesn't believe, rest in peace, by the way, but he doesn't believe that anyone has done anything for anyone else completely selflessly. And I think that's probably true, because even at a very minute level, you do something for someone else because it feels good, it feels like the right thing, and ultimately that's because that makes you feel good, right? So that's another thing. But I guess maybe to simplify my answer, are you looking for like kind of like a what I do in the day, or what are you really looking for?
I, I'm looking for a story, like I'm
Or
really
yeah.
just looking for, and you can define that in any way, shape, or form you want to. It's like it's not a specific answer I'm looking for. It's really just more getting to know you could say your behaviors, but in general, like just your attitude, towards like how do you approach life in a way of when challenges occur, or when things get difficult, or in the low times, or also in the high times, like just
Yeah.
whatever you feel like you want to be sharing about your attitude and approach to life is very welcome and is very enriching for me.
Beautiful. All right. Well, The very simple practical stuff, like I like to be active. That's a little bit outside of what you said, but I'll start there. So irregardless of how I feel, I like to move, do some walking, some rebounding. Of course, if I'm like really injured and it hurts to do so, I step away from that. But I like to move, and that really makes a huge difference in my life. Aside from the food, of course, good clean water, and I'm really big on sleep. I don't like alarms, so I really seldom have alarms unless it's like absolutely necessary. Sleep until I want to, and if I, wake up and I feel like I could use more sleep, I roll over and get more sleep. I love hot showers and baths and all that kind of good stuff. Um, in terms of how I operate in hard conditions or stuff that's going on, oftentimes I kind of like to look at it like the wind, or the weather. It's like if something's hard that's going on that I can't control, well, what is the use of fretting and worrying and freaking out about it? Like I may have a knee-jerk reaction sometimes when it's not something I want and get really frustrated. I think sometimes, it's important to vent and be authentic with what we're feeling and be able to express that safely. But I try to, just be aware of that and just be as quick and short-lived as possible, like to fully let it out as much as I can. I recently put out a video called the Pouty Pants Dance, which I use sometimes where basically, if I'm experiencing a frustrating situation or if I'm feeling really down, I'll put on my pouty pants, I'll ball up my fists, and I'll pout just like a little kid. Like this isn't fair, like no, I don't like it. I hate this, and stomp my feet and I try to like really, really give it 110%, even more than is actual real. And that allows me to transmute that energy, and oftentimes I end up smiling and laughing by the end of it because it just feels silly. So that's one way, but I, I try to just really authentically let myself be, like
Mm,
even if I do that and I still feel it, well, we don't always have good days. Sometimes there are hardships that, we can't just snap our fingers and let go. And that's part of life. Uh, I like to look at life as an opportunity, opportunity for self-reflection, for growth, for choice. We always have choice. And, sometimes that choice is just sitting in it until I'm
mm,
ready to let it go. And other times I'm able to shift fairly quickly because it wasn't something really, really big. But those times where I really find myself sitting in it, again, it's more opportunity for self-reflection and to know what I don't want and what I really want to create and how I can go there. So I see myself as a creator, and I like to take ownership of what I feel and the results of my actions. And at the same time, I don't really want to put so much pressure on myself that it has to be the best or have the world on my shoulders, as I said before.
mm,
So I accept accept the reality of things and try to just come into deeper acceptance and more awareness of what is.
mm. Beautiful. Ah, that's amazing. So what I hear you say is that you kind of go with what gets presented to you rather than trying to force a certain idea or force a certain way that you want things to be onto life, right? So you
Yeah.
work with what you got. And
Yeah.
sometimes it is that you can easily go with it. You go with the flow and you realize, oh, yeah, that's way better than where I thought I wanted to go. Or sometimes maybe this acceptance doesn't come so easy and you got to sit in it a little bit and maybe even get it out and be like, fuck, why is this not working out? But it's not that you try to fight life or
Yeah.
resist
Yeah.
it in a way that changing it the way that you think it is correct or that you think it would be better, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's sometimes it's just like screaming into the wind, and I mean, we might find ourselves screaming into the wind at times, but ultimately, I guess I could say my base perspective that I try to live by and I really firmly believe, and even saying that though, that doesn't mean that I'm always in it. Sometimes like I
Yeah.
believe it, but sometimes it leaves, is I really do believe that perfection is inherent in the process and that everything we're
Mm,
experiencing is truly perfect. And when people say like, well, nobody's perfect, I actually don't agree with that. I think everyone is perfect in this moment for their
mm,
awakening, for their unfolding, for their expansion of consciousness, acceptance, and awareness. And if we could step back and see the bigger picture outside of this lifetime, because I don't believe that we only live one life personally.
mhm,
But I think if we could step outside of that and see a wider frame, we would see that it's all perfect. We're just in a really tiny framework where we're like just seeing this much. And again, when we're stuck in it's not okay, it's not perfect, this is unfair. Well, yeah, it seems horrible, but if we step back and see that that's just an opportunity for our growth, an opportunity for our understanding to get to know ourselves and the nature of the universe itself, then it becomes a wider, more open-hearted kind of perfect sequence of
Mm.
events. It's like, again, it's the process, because I don't think
Hmm.
there's anything that's like statically perfect. Everything's in movement, everything is changing. And I think that change and that ability to consciously change is the perfection itself.
Mm. Ah, that's so beautiful to hear, man. It's when I look at you, I just see someone who is actually very gentle and playful and humble. At least that's how you get perceived by me. So take that one. Don't argue with me on that one.
Thank
Don't
you.
resist it.
Thank you.
And I'm curious. I mean, when I look at you, it seems like you your life in a certain way you're leading your life in a way that you really want to lead it, and you kind of have processes in place that actually support you, and where you also support the environment around you, like where you can share and that gets received by the people who want to receive it, and you're also ready to receive whatever's coming from the environment towards you, so it seems harmonious. And I would be curious, was that always the case? Like, did you always kind of have this notion of a harmony and your place within that harmony and kind of which role you want to play? Or was there a certain point where that started kind of coming more to the surface? Or, yeah, where do you come from? Was it always harmonious, peace, fresh fruit, love, Chris? Or was there a different version at a certain point?
Well, I mean, first off, I'd like to say thank you for that perspective, and I would say a lot of the time I am in that harmony, but I'm not always. I'm just like anyone else, of course, and there are times where I think I have it the worst, even though I know I don't. Like I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely know I don't, but everyone feels like they have it the worst, or it could be better, or that things are unfair. Especially around technology, I'll admit that's my Achilles
Mm.
heel. Is when I actually, it's kind of funny because like I'm naturally more introverted than extroverted, which people are always surprised to hear. I'm not really a technical person. In fact, I was the last person out of my friend group to go on any social media platform. I didn't really want to go on it. I didn't have computers. I didn't like this stuff. But my life journey has led me to have importance with it, to be able to spread my message because that was more important than those other discomforts. And when I put time into the computer or into this stuff, like there are other things I'd rather do, including just relax, like just relax with my cat and pet her or go skateboarding or take a walk, and so when things don't go right or smoothly, that's when I lose my shit, that's when I'm like, oh man, like come on, just work, and that's when the perfection process and all those other things really come into play, so um yeah, but I mean, in general, I think it's been a cultivation. But at the same time, I feel like in general, like I feel very, very fortunate that since I was very, very young, I was really connected to my passion and passion pursuits and the things that just really lit me up and led me to feel my best and to like feel like I'm glowing with my true essence, and it started with skateboarding. And I mean, I don't remember life before skateboarding. And raw food and yoga also really became prominent with that same kind of feeling, especially skateboarding and raw food. And um, so like in some respects, like I feel like I have always had that as a backbone or as a strength to try and seek inner harmony through being authentic with myself and being authentic with what is true and inside me in the moment. I think it's usually when we bottle things up and we resist what is that we create the most disharmony. So I've really tried to do that, and I mean even more so, the last bunch of years, like just allow, or to express myself authentically, even if it doesn't feel like, someone's going to receive it as well as they would, like I've joked before, peace, love, and seasonal fruit until, until the computer goes wrong or until, XYZ, but yeah, no, I think it's been a little bit of both. I think it's been a bit of a long-standing thing, but at the same time, something that I've brought more awareness to create even more harmony because ultimately, like years ago, I made the decision that I wanted to make a career out of living my authentic life and trying to, you know, do what makes me feel the absolute best, and help other people. And so in part of that, like I see self-cultivation and growth and awareness as a part of my job, and like, so it is a continuing practice and one that I really don't doubt I'll stumble with in the future. And, but that's part of the road. It's all a
Mm-hmm.
dance for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you feel like it was always kind of there, like this kind of urge to follow your passions and to express yourself in that way and to kind of just play. Like it
Yeah.
all sounds like you love to play. I mean,
I love to play.
skateboarding. I mean,
Yeah.
even all the recipe books that you have, where I got fortunate to receive those in one of your giveaways. They just seem so like I open them and I feel playfulness in there. It's like curiosity and like experimentation. I was like, fuck, this is so great. Like I would have never thought about it, but probably you were just like, let's fucking try it. And so it's like there's a curiosity in there, and I think that on a certain level that is probably innate within most children, all children, maybe.
That's
And
it.
at a certain point, we kind of, it's not that we want to lose track of it, but there's just so many distractions. You could
We
say,
grow up.
yeah, exactly. Grow up and forget what life is actually about.
Yeah.
Fuck. Um, we could say like now, okay, there's systems that try to control us. I think we just don't focus on it anymore. It's like there's like the focus goes somewhere else, and if we believe the saying, where attention goes, energy flows. Like the
Yeah.
tension and the energy just does not flow to the curiosity and the playfulness anymore. So I'd be curious, how do you maintain? Because I'm pretty sure there is distractions everywhere, and so there's also distractions in your life, and there have probably also been people telling you, no fucking way that's gonna work out, Chris. Like, no way you're gonna be able to make a career by peace, love, and seasonal fruiting. It's like by just skateboarding, sharing your passions. Like being you. Like, how's that supposed to work? And of course, there's then also a lot of information online of, if you want to have a functioning business whatsoever, you got to do it exactly that way, this 10-step plan, 6-week course whatsoever. So I'm pretty sure there were distractions and also kind of hurdles on your journey. So how do you how did you approach those, and like in how did you actually allow yourself to stay centered, and how did you allow yourself to kind of stick to your truth? Like how did you even cultivate that connection and this inner fierceness to stick with what you felt like you wanted to do rather than what was happening around you?
That's a fun one, man. That's fun. And you kind of awoken me something to a realization. That the time where I felt the most discord was when I didn't accept the deeper things within myself, and like I came to a place of like depression and sadness and injuries and all this kind of stuff. And when I stopped being authentic and actually voicing that to others, but just put on a pretty face, and that's when I felt the most discord. But to your newer question, the big thing for me is I didn't see any other alternative.
Mm,
That's the honest truth. I was like, I mean, when I was young, it was just skateboarding. I was like, nothing else matters. I don't like. It's not that I don't care. It's like this is my thing that I care the absolute most about, and everything else pales in comparison. So I'm going to do absolutely everything in order to make this a reality. And that's when it started falling apart with skateboarding. That's when I started to find yoga and health because I felt like I needed that in order to continue with my skateboarding. But unbeknownst to me, a new passion was born, something that superseded skateboarding and became more important and real and authentic in my heart. And so then when I found that, I was like, this is why I'm on the planet. Like nothing else, like why would I do anything else? Like nothing else even compares to this. Nothing else feels like it's authentic and true to my calling or my nature. And the world freaking needs this. And then it strengthened skateboarding too. Because I was like, well, now skateboarding is an amazing opportunity to connect with a whole group of people that maybe doesn't see this or feel this. I mean, 20 years ago, skateboarders weren't anywhere near as open or visible within the health game. Most of them is about drinking and drugs and eating as crappy as you could and just being tough. And if you're injured, don't do anything, don't exercise. Now it's a lot more open towards that. But yeah, the really short, honest answer is just I remember when I was 4.5 years into raw food, right around there, and I had been at different stages of it being like so clear and so focused, heart so opened, and like knowing this is what I want to do, but still afraid to do it, and procrastinating and procrastinating. And I was in a serious relationship with someone that I actually like marriage was talked about and all this other stuff, and like I was loving it. Like I still absolutely love her; she's amazing. Um, but because of her own personal history, sometimes me being really simple and strict was triggering to her and created some patterns from past behaviors that was really disruptive for her. Like I won't go into her story, but it was really tough for her. And so I made some concessions, and I made these concessions, and they got more frequent, and they affected me more and more. And I started wanting to drink, and I did drink a few times, and I was like, I just felt really down and crappy. And I came to a place where I was like, I had a big conversation. I'm like, I want to do this much less. Like, once or twice a week is way too much. I just feel like I'm on a roller coaster and never feeling good. And I'm thinking max once a month. And she instead was like, no, I want more and this and that. And I won't go again too deep into it, but it became a really clear point where she even kind of said, like, you just can't just do that for a living, especially if we want to get a house and this and that. And I'm like, I'd rather effing die than do anything else. Like, this is who I am. This is what I want to do. And it became a splitting point where we split up. And I went through a bit of a depression after that because it was a really serious relationship. And I remember going home and having like a few days, maybe it was a week, this was again like 16 plus years ago. Um, where I was so depressed I couldn't digest food. I just felt so like, what's going to happen? I had a view of my life pictured, and it just totally shifted. And I was completely devastated. And then in that moment, I remembered yoga and certain kind of movements and stuff like that to help rekindle my digestive fire and my connection to self. And then I just was like, you know what? If I made this choice, if I gave that up, it's time to go 110% in. And I can honestly say from there, within a week, I started the Raw Advantage, had my first 2 books written, and started doing that full time. I've never looked back. Just 100%. I was like, I'm diving 1,000% in. And um, I think that's kind of it. It's just like clarity and really being willing to go 100% in. And I mean, also I've had support. I mean, I lived at my parents for a time when I was making, the first year like $2,000 in the whole first year working totally full time, like 100% full time. And then the next few years, it took a long time to breach 7,000 a year. So it was a progressive journey, but just feeling completely 100% certain that this is what I want to do and that I'm not going to accept less. It's like talking about acceptance. It's like, you know, I think there's a little bit of a gradient there because I just had such clarity. And I mean, that's not to say that if um, it was completely, literally impossible that I wouldn't accept enough to do something else to make some money while I still, cultivate that. But there was there was in that moment or in that kind of uh, reality not much acceptance of anything else. I'm like, this is what I'm creating, this is what I want to do, and I just went for it.
Mm, mm. Thank you for sharing that, bro. It's beautiful to see what I hear in there is like really this marriage or this merging of commitment and then acceptance of the process. Whereas like you
Yeah.
you are committed and you're like in full devotion to your vision and what you feel to be true within your body. And then you gotta actually have this acceptance and almost like unwavering faith. I mean, it wavers at times and like don't have to tell you. I mean, if you're making 2,000 bucks a year, that's not really confirming the mental construct that, oh, that's a great idea, right? Like that's more like the thing of like, is that really going to work out? Like for a year, I've been working full time and it's like not really bringing in the bucks, it's like, but unwavering faith and still like this commitment to you actually knowing that there is no other option for you. And that's beautiful. And I think this is, yeah, just a beautiful balance of like having this fierceness and then being extremely actually soft and open to the journey itself. Because to be honest, we have those ideas of how the journey goes, and I have my ideas, and you probably have your ideas how the next few years are going to go. But to be honest, we have no fucking idea.
No clue. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No fucking idea. And when I look
Yeah.
back, most of the times when I thought I had an idea, it got crushed
Yeah.
and it worked out even more beautifully. I wouldn't say not more, how to say, I wouldn't say not more successful or more enriching on the material plane, but the overall experience felt more harmonious. Coming back to what you said, like this sense of inherent perfection within all the workings. It's like looking back, I'm like, could have not planned it. I could have not planned it that way. You know,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
it's actually too perfect to be true, but that's only in retrospect, you know, you can see that actually is
Absolutely.
like, oh, dang, like I could have worried and I could have stressed a lot less, and the result would have been probably the same, and I just would have saved a lot of energy in the process. So
Yeah, absolutely. No, I've had so many experiences of that very thing in my life that it's like it's ingrained 100%. And again, that doesn't mean that I don't that I always accept it 100% in the moment. There's always those knee-jerk reactions, but the recognition of that and coming back to center becomes faster, more reliable, and easier and easier. I love the saying, like, we make plans and God laughs. I love it. But yeah, no, that's been shown to me many, many times. A really poignant one that is kind of wild actually is, I've been doing this now full time for 16 plus years, and I'm not joking when I say sometimes it's been full time, like 10 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week. Especially in the very beginning stages. And, I've done most of things by myself, especially in the first decade, really, and then I started getting more help computer wise and, streamlining kind of stuff. But between that and doing a lot of festivals and retreats, which I love because, at some points there's 3 festivals a year and 1 or 2 retreats a year and, being online and stuff, I got to a point where I was like, I just want a break. Like, I'd like to say no to some of these commitments that, like, as much as I love festivals, 10 years of festivals in a row, or at that point, maybe like 8 years of festivals, I was like, I just want to say no. But a part of me is afraid if I say no, that I won't be invited back. They'll find someone else that fills that spot. And, I'm old hat and, whatever you want to say. But it was fear that prevented me from listening to my authentic self and wanting a break and just wanting to just like be for a little while. And what happened? I got hit by a truck and I was forced to take a break, and it's kind of wild because I could have been like, oh, poor me, like, will I ever skateboard again? And I was in certain moments depressed, like, am I ever going to be able to skateboard again? Like, I was mangled, I nearly died. And at the same time, I recognized and said, I've been asking for a break for a long time. I've been asking for an excuse just to chill out and watch all 8 seasons of Star Trek The Next Generation without even like the slightest bit of guilt. And I owned that and I took that on and I felt gratitude, truthfully, in some ways, not in every single way, but in some ways, I'm like, I'm going to totally take advantage of this, and um, yeah, and I still look back at it and go like, it wasn't something I planned. It's not something that I would plan again by any way, shape, or form. But I also see the beauty in it, some benefits that I gained from it, some extra clarity and rewiring myself in some ways. Um, it really brought me back to what's important. And yeah, I think that almost anything that can happen to us can be seen in that way. And it's exemplified in so many individuals that come through hard stuff and are able to look back in that way.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's sometimes the most powerful thing is a pause, you know, to actually take
Yeah.
a break, take a breather. And usually that's what I see from my experience. Like when I try to skip the small pauses throughout
Yeah.
my day, you know, like maybe a little morning meditation or a little nature walk without any kind of input or whatsoever. When I skip those, then at a certain point comes like the accumulation of the skipping comes
Yeah.
as a big pause. And that is usually a pause that is imposed on me in a
Yeah.
way that is not that comfortable. Like as you said, it might be an accident or it might
Yeah.
be uh
Mental
sickness or
breakdown.
whatsoever. I mean, yeah, some kind of breakdown on any level. It could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be mental, but it's kind of like it's a break. It's actually a break because we need a break. And the funny thing is, it's like it's breakdown, but another word that starts with break is breakthrough.
Yeah.
And what I found very interesting is kind of the correlation between those two is that usually if I don't take a break to allow myself to actually have an internal breakthrough,
Yeah.
it leads to breakdown.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me it was I always tried to take all the opportunities and like what you actually were saying with like those festivals and then
Yeah.
trying to attend all of them out of the fear of not being invited back in or losing the traction or losing the momentum, not being able to kind of keep living that way. I know that. And I have really hard times at times saying no, even though saying no to a certain thing would actually mean saying yes to my body, would actually be saying yes to taking care of myself, to loving myself, to honoring what my body wants in this moment. And oftentimes
100%.
it's rest. And I like honestly like the whole thing that you said earlier about sleeping in or
Mhm.
like allowing your body to sleep as long as he needs, you know?
Yeah.
I got into that really deeply, I would say, in the last 2 years,
Yeah.
and it's been an absolute game changer. And
Yeah.
before that, I was like the whole what is it called? The 5 a.m. club crew. I don't know. There's a
Yeah.
certain term for it where it's like get up at 5 and like get started and the earlier the better and get ahead and whatsoever. And I was maybe getting ahead, but the thing is I was getting ahead of myself and then
Yeah.
I had to break at a certain point to actually return to myself and to actually be with myself. And the sleeping in, it's a beautiful, I would say for me it's even a practice because some days I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, this is great and I deserve that and fuck, I feel amazing. And some days I wake up and I get anxious and I'm like, fuck, I missed something. Oh my
Yeah.
God, like I should have already been working. I should have already been doing something. And it's like interesting to
All the shit.
observe. Genau, and it's interesting to observe the almost the guilt and the shame
Yeah.
I put on myself for doing it my way. And then
Yeah.
there's when I see like how these ideas come in, it was like, no, you should be getting up early and you should be working 8,
Mhm.
9, 10 hours a day. But actually, it's been proven to me over and over and over again that the more I actually take care of myself and the more I actually take care of my my internal workings and I really listen to
Mhm.
what is, you could say, aligned, like which action actually wants to be done,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a lot more productive than doing 8 hours of just work for work
Yeah.
sake rather than I really
100%.
want to pour my heart, my energy in there. And it's interesting to just see that there is this big conflict within where it's like I see it as like a hierarchy where my
Mhm.
mind tries to be on top
Mhm.
and my mind tries to control it all, but
Yeah.
actually things go the smoothest and the easiest and the most effortless when I'm making my decisions from down here, from the heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to
I
listen that
feel
and to
that.
trust that, it's a journey, man. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really at times I actually
Yeah.
know, and you said it earlier also with not following through, you know, like you knew in which direction you wanted to go, and then there was kind of you not taking the action because out of
Yeah. The
fear.
mind. Yeah.
And it's crazy and it's interesting to observe that actually the body does know. And I think that is also one of the things why I actually enjoy a lot of the lighter diet and the more um, connection with my body that came from eating more raw, fresh fruit and vegetable and all that kind of stuff. Because I was almost always having some sort of digestive issue
Yeah.
And I didn't actually want to connect with my body. I was
Yeah.
actually blaming, and I was getting angry at my stomach and my intestines for not being able to handle what I was putting in there,
Yeah.
even though what I was putting in there was out of avoidance of sensations within my body.
Yeah.
And that was like
Common.
a big revelation at a certain point when I got into like also fasting and like taking it more easy. And you were one of the first guys actually that I followed in that whole journey on Instagram, where I was like, this guy is crushing fucking 30 mandarins in one of his Instagram lives. Like, this
Yeah.
looks fun, and you were just making it also like look really enjoyable, whereas like a lot of other people I saw was like, oh, that looks forced, I don't want to do that. But I was looking at you, I was like, fuck, what Chris doing looks fun. um but one of the big benefits that came with it was like this connection with my body. And in the beginning it
Yeah.
was really uncomfortable because
Yeah.
there were so many things that I tried to keep in there unexpressed, bottled up,
Yeah.
covered with layers of food that didn't get digested. So it was this big, like you could say, literal or also energetical kind of constriction within my belly. And there was no flow of energy going in there. And all my thinking and all my acting came from my head. And so I was just running against the same wall over and over and over again because I was not able to connect with the guidance system within my body.
Mm.
And it was really a revelation when I started taking breaks, also breaks from eating. Like for me, it was interesting to not eat for 2 days, for 3 days, for 4 days, at a certain point for 8 days.
Mhm.
And then to realize, oh, and after that, the relationship with food, but also with my thoughts and my actions and my emotions, it changed.
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean that I don't want to eat at all anymore. I love food and I love the flavors and I love and I love the social aspect of it. I love inviting people over, and that's why I'm kind of a fruit till 5 kind of person. So until
Yeah.
5 p.m. I only fruit and juices. And afterwards, I see. It's like sometimes it's more fruit, sometimes it's a salad. I told you earlier in Italy, the pizza came on the table, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna dive into that one. But overall, just the connection with the body that came from that was filled with so many benefits of my life seeming to get easier. It just
Yeah.
became all more effortless and more in the flow of things. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, you're the specialist on that one, but the flow within your system definitely also does reflect the flow within life. Would you agree with that?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We can create prisons in our mind. And I think, I really resonate with the thought that oh geez, I just lost the thought. That's so funny. That's so funny. Yeah, I'm sure it's gonna come back. I'm sure it's gonna come back. But
It's flowing, you
it's
just
flowing
gotta let
around
it.
somewhere. It's flowing around somewhere. But I mean, actually starting, we can really shoot ourselves to death, like we can
Mm,
really shoot ourselves, can't ourselves. I'm really big on language. I really enjoy, I mentioned before Marshall Rosenberg, nonviolent communication and other ways of really looking at linguistics and how it affects us, physically, mentally, emotionally. And having those shoulds in our lives, it can really be seen as violent language because it denotes rightness and wrongness. And if we don't do it that way,
mm,
well, we're wrong. And, that's a constricting, tight kind of emotion. And I really do my best to eliminate all shoulds and can'ts and have tos from my life and to live from a place of what do I genuinely want, and recognizing that sometimes what you want requires doing things that maybe you don't really want to do, but the outcome of it is, what you do want, so it's to me a bit of a marriage of those two things, but yeah, that one point that is so funny, it's just floating in the ether right now, but I'm just going to accept that that's where it is and it'll come back if it's
mm.
important.
Exactly. No, I love what you said. It's almost like I mean the shoulds and the cans and like what you were just speaking into is that it's a lot of judgment in there. And
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
think what is important is discernment, like
Mhm.
seeing that it's not all the same. Like it does make a difference if you go this way or that way, if you eat this or if you eat that. But neither is the devil and neither is like just completely evil. It's just
Yeah,
if you go this way, you're going to have a certain experience, and if you go that way, you're going to have a different experience. And
exactly.
just be looking, and again, we come back to taking a pause and actually reflecting and being like, okay, my mind maybe wants me, or out of habit, out of fear, I want to go into this direction because it seems more safe, or it seems more comfortable, or it seems more what I'm used to. But on the other hand, there is actually a pull towards the other direction, like also what you said, like resting, for example. You said earlier, before we even started recording, that you're just coming out of a phase of deep rest and
Yeah.
kind of this cocooning phase in winter, and that's beautiful. And that's something that I actually feel my body, especially right now in this season, is really wanting and requiring. And when I'm looking out of the window, it gets reaffirmed. It's like, oh yeah, it's rest, it's pause. It's like there's not much happening out there.
Yeah.
But then on the other side, there's my mind being like, no, it's the new year. It's like you gotta make all those things. And I'm like, wait, new year starting in the middle of winter? That's kind of off. That doesn't feel right within my body, but whatever, whatever. But just like seeing that sometimes I still push myself and I'm having a really busy day. And at the end of the day, I realize, that kind of didn't give me the sensation, the feeling of fulfillment, of satisfaction, of enjoyment that I was kind of hoping to get out of it.
Yeah.
Let's try a different way tomorrow. And also seeing there is days where you can do a lot, where you just want to do, and there's days where you just want to rest. And sometimes it's not just days, it's weeks. I had a conversation with a friend yesterday, and she's very driven and she's very, I would say, very bold and like very, she's a doer and she gets stuff done, and she's great at it, and she organizes these great groups where she's guiding people, and she's like really in there, and like she has this fiery energy that is truly inspiring, and like just it lights you up when you're in her presence. And she told me, this last month I just took 19 days off. And I looked at her, I was like, that doesn't sound like you. And she's like, I know. I also resisted it initially, but I fucking enjoyed it. And I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I get you. I also took
100%.
like days off. It's like I just didn't show up for work, which is
Mm.
great when you're self-employed.
Yeah.
You just got to convince that inner boss that it's fine to have a rest day.
Yeah.
But this discernment, I feel like, is really important. And it does not have to come with judgment. Because for me, again, the difference between discernment and judgment is discernment is actually listening to the body, and is listening to the environment, is listening to the situation, is actually being open to receive the information of what is most aligned right now. And judgment is from this hierarchy of the mind thinking it knows best.
Yes. Yeah.
And what I can see myself doing a lot is I compromise my well-being and my expression right now for a future promise, like a hope
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I'll get somewhere or I'll get something that will fulfill me. And I sometimes for weeks and months I'm running in this mental internal hamster wheel of like, no, I do gotta just upload one more reel and do it like just one more week and one more month. That's been actually a thing that was very present for me right now. I've been very consistent with uploading content. And the
Yeah.
last few weeks I had to realize, oh, this kind of excitement that initially was there, it's kind of it faded away. And right now I'm just keeping it alive, or I was keeping it alive for the promise that at a certain point a reel will blow up and just give me that rush of like, oh my God, more followers, more likes, more this, more that. And like, that kind of doesn't, but it doesn't feel really fulfilling or satisfying within my body. And there's a lot more energy that actually wants to go into resting and spending time with my family. And next month I'm gonna go visit my family in Germany. And like I'm just thinking and talking about this. I'm like, oh yeah, this actually does feel enlivening and fulfilling and satisfying. And it took me again a few weeks of running against that wall and just being like, why is that not fulfilling me? Like, why is this frustrating me? To realize, oh, just something else was actually required in that moment. And then that's kind of, to me, the beauty of discernment is then also seeing like, oh, actually, running against that wall gave me the opportunity to realize, oh, I don't need to be doing this anymore. And it's not that I should have listened more to my body. It's like, no, it's like actually exactly choosing this way gave me the opportunity to, at a certain point, realize, oh, that's actually not the way.
Yeah.
And that's kind of interesting where I come from a place of right and wrong, and that's the way and that's not. But it's
Yeah.
like it's all the way. It's just
Yeah.
different experiences, and sometimes we learn the tough way. And if we oftentimes, I mean, if we banged our head against the same wall 10 times, maybe we realize it hurts. Maybe it needs 100 times, you know?
Yeah.
With some things, it needs just more repetitions to kind of realize I don't want that anymore.
Yeah.
But life is never wrong. That's what I found, at least. Like, life is actually never wrong. And if I listen, I usually get a message out of it, or I can learn something from it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've experienced the exact same thing many times, and I don't think we're alone. I think we as humans are typically pretty slow learners and require banging our head many, many times to get something. And even when we get something, time passes and we forget, or the impression it left on us dims, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves banging our head against the wall again. And it's just another cycle of opportunity for patience, for cultivating that self-love and acceptance, and that awareness where we hopefully get it a little bit quicker the next time. It's
Mm,
like instead of needing to get to the point where we're on the ground drooling with blood on our forehead, we're like, oh, I just got a little bit of a bump. Is this what I want? I'm here again? Like kind of going back to that childlike wonder. It's like seeing everything anew rather than just like, oh, old hat, whatever. Same
mm,
thing, nothing special. And actually, while you're talking about that, and it fits with this, I remembered what I was thinking about. Um, yeah, that I really connect with the thought that that our mind is a tool, to be utilized, and like it's really amazing and it's super beneficial, but it's not really the place to live. Like our heart space is the
mm,
place to live where there is the true connection and the true abundance. That's where the childlike wonder and the connection and the deeper sense of happiness and joy and overflowingness in the moment. And I think it's kind of interesting. There are studies that suggest that the more intellectual and or intelligent one is, the more prone they are to depression. And I don't think that it's necessarily directly because they're intelligent, but it's because they're more situated and focused in their intelligence, in their mind, and trying to see the world and map it and like be within this framework and
mm,
not be flexible around that. And like it just comes from going from there back into the heart, and that's again where I think the true moment of creation starts, where you can really be open, instead of linear. And it actually makes me think of one other thing I want to mention on this is there's this cool book and movie that I've read the book and saw the movie multiple times. It's called, if I remember right, Peaceful Warrior, Way of the Peaceful Warrior.
mm.
Dan
Love
Millman
that.
story. If you've seen it, yeah, it's really, really great. One of my favorite movies with Nick Nolte. He's really fun in it. He's like a Buddhist monk, that is like the mentor of Dan Millman, who's like a champion gymnast. And again, this is a true story. But there's one sequence in that I just really, really love where, Dan was a little late to meeting up with him, and unexpectedly he picks up Dan and throws him over the bridge right into the water, you know, and like he freaks out and like, what the heck are you doing? I can't believe you just did that. Like, what are you, completely out of your mind? And he just looks at him and goes, it took me a lifetime to get there, you know. I just love it because you know most of us are just completely self-identified and in our mind, and I really think true peace starts when we let go of that. And again, we see it as a tool and we come into our heart and we're completely open to the moment without the frameworks and the talk and the judgment and the this or that. And, you know, that doesn't mean that it doesn't still, you know, chatter sometimes, but it's whether we self-identify with it or whether we just see it like, oh, that's what's going on. Like,
Mhm.
okay, is that true? Or otherwise like, oh, okay, whatever, just like a cloud floating by. Like, okay, let's move on. Here I am. You know, what can I do right now? The yeah, that's a big source of joy and a reminder to just come back to what is and what is truly important. And you know, yesterday, I can even say yesterday, it's kind of funny. I was mentioning before the call that I've had a few weeks of, you know, just being a little bit kind of feeling like I was kind of spread thin and still taking my time and you know, giving myself more space for that. Um, but still even finding in the moments that I was relaxing, not totally relaxing, you know, like
Mhm.
still having a little bit of tightness behind it. And the other night, I started to feel like stirrings of creativity bubbling forth, you know, and, you know, it is so often, kind of like you said, that, you know, you feel like you should get this done or like, you know, why take time off? Like I need to do this and that. It's when we create that space that, you know, the creative bubble starts to grow and, you know, we actually get to more authentic maybe miraculous creative endeavors, you know, where you know maybe the reels are feeling old and you know you give yourself a break and all of a sudden you're like, I want to do this. It's not that I thought I should do this. You know, it's like such a different quality when you come from genuinely wanting to because of a desire to create and be creative and share rather than like I need to do this for the algorithm, you know, and but going back to yesterday, I actually woke up with the plan. Okay, I'm gonna do this. Like I really want to do this. I really want to do that. And like I was gonna have a really productive, busy day, like doing some things that I've been putting off for quite a while. Truthfully, I was like, I'm ready. And then as the day progressed, I was like, you know what? I'm so close to being there. I'm so close to being there. But what I really want is just to lay here and cuddle my Snoo, my cat. Like that's just really what I want to do today. And I did it with total acceptance. And I felt so much lightness and so much like buoyant, glowing light and love in my heart in that moment, just with my cat. That I've had many moments with my cat that were beautiful, you know, but yesterday it just felt like completely yoked in that moment. Like there was, I was like, I said, like, I actually filmed it. I'll be posting it later. I was like, there's nothing more important in this moment than this, you know? And I 100% believed and embodied it. And we just cuddled and it was the freaking best. And, you know, I allowed myself to have a super chill day. I still did some work when I genuinely felt like doing it in that moment. But it wasn't nearly as productive as a day as I had planned. And
Mhm.
I'm totally okay with that. You know, like, I don't know. I used to have more of a linear plan of like this date, that date, and yeah, sure, I still have some launches that are you know with other people and stuff like that that I want to live up to those expectations. But for my own stuff, my own projects, I'm like I have the rest of my life. I want to do them when I feel totally here. Snoo, she wants. I mean, she knew we were talking about her. She's just the best.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm gonna do them when it feels good and when I genuinely want to do them because I know that's what's gonna bring me the most you know satisfaction and you know actually do it in a way that I think feels authentic and brings more to the table. You know.
Kudos to you, man. I mean, it's huge. Like I know those moments for sure when the body is actually like, no, not today, you know, it's
No.
like that's not the actual plan. Like you think that's the plan, but it's not the actual plan for the day.
Yeah.
And it takes discipline to actually relax into that, to relax into that trust and also into the I would always almost say like conviction that it's okay to
Yeah.
not do and to rest and to let the body guide. And
of course, there's like many practices we can be doing to be opening the heart, and even that, I think, for me at a certain point has become a should. You know, it's
Mm.
like, no, Tim, you should be more heart-centered and more your heart should be more open. It's like, yeah, the should is definitely going to open my heart right now. It's like, yeah, that's how it works. But
That might be
it's
getting in the
interesting.
way.
Exactly, exactly. But it's so interesting how quickly, and I mean that's I think part of our current developmental stage in a certain way, that the neocortex it's firing. I mean, it's like we in a certain way still living out of a survival state. We still have so many fears that are valid on some level, but also unexpressed. And I think the beauty about it is actually, for example, your situation yesterday, maybe you even not yesterday, but at a certain point had to face a fear. Is like, what happens if I don't follow through with my schedule today? You know, and there might be this fear, there might have been this fear that you also spoke into earlier, where it's like, am I going to be cast out of the community? You know, are people going to forget about me if I'm not creating this piece of content today? Am I not going to be enough for a certain person to love me? Or am I just actually not going to be enough for myself? You know, can I not respect myself? Can I not love myself? Can I not honor myself if I'm not performing a certain way?
Yeah.
And I think it is really, how to say, brave actually to relax into that, and then to also allow those fears to bubble up, and to look at them and be like, oh wow, that's where I'm actually not being completely free, where I'm
Yeah.
still living within a prison, where it's like, of course I can say that that's society, or that's what my parents imprinted me with, or what. And this is all, I would say, partially true. It's like we are products of our environment. It's nature and it's nurture. But I think it is really brave, and I want to really point that out, that one of the things I see when I look at you is like somebody who really honors his nature and puts effort into remembering that, and really like has like a devotional practice of honoring the inherent Christmas within yourself, you know, and allowing that to come out, and being like, okay, I maybe didn't do it for a week or for a month, you know, like got all caught up in whatever, but I'm coming back there because I actually do know that it does work, and I do know that I feel the best in there, and that's kind of the most important thing. Is like the fulfillment comes from expressing this nature, and also taking responsibility for whatever came through the nurture, but just knowing now it's your time or our time to actually nurture our nature, to come back to like, now it's me, we adults, we are grown-ups. I mean, in some regards, in some not.
Yeah.
In some hopefully never, you know, in some regards
Yeah.
hopefully never grown-ups. But it's my responsibility to actually commit back to my nature, and to come back there, and nobody outside of you will actually have the answer. No 6-week course, no 8-week course, no 10-month mentoring, no 7-year mastermind. Like, they might give you the opportunity and the space to have some insights. Beautiful.
Yeah.
But at the end, it's like, it's you with your experience, and we gotta kind of find peace within that. I mean, I'm just seeing like the top of your shirt is like, that's a good reminder. It's like peace. We
Yeah.
gotta find
Yeah.
exactly that.
Absolutely, man. No, I couldn't agree more. It's like it comes back to kind of what you said before too, is choice and experience. Like I don't think that there's a right or wrong way to do it. It's just like really genuinely what do you want, and can you be in acceptance of the experience you create and to learn from it to, more fully understand and refine what you want to do next, and there's obviously those lessons like we talked about that come back and hit you in the head multiple times. And if I do embody that, I think it's because it's hit me in the head really hard multiple times. And I won't say I've been forced to it. And in times it felt like I was forced to learn it again, but I just created that opportunity to really, really learn it deeply. Like I've been really self-identified at different times in my life, with skateboarding, and it's come back again after the motorcycle accident. Like an identity around that. And the same thing with raw food, being the raw food guy or the health guy, and like have a really strong identity with that. And I think it's incredibly empowering to come to a place of like knowing why you're doing that, and can you be okay if you lost that label? Like what if that was gone? Like what does that mean for you? Can you still love yourself? Can you still feel like you can bring importance to the table, and be an acceptance of what is, and I've butted my head against both of those so many freaking times, and it feels good to be okay with either, and at the same time recognizing that there is so much to gain through those aspects of those identities. It's like, you know, they are in some ways a superpower and something to have gratitude for and to cultivate, but it's just the attachment to them because, you know, all things must pass, all things do change, right? So uh, it's always a balance and always aligned, and it's something that I've definitely butted my head against, and I feel really deep gratitude for, and even deeper gratitude to mentally, emotionally be okay and recognize, because like talking about like with the raw food thing is like there's nothing else in the world I'd rather do, and then then you burn yourself out and you think like, well, is it really what I want? Like, yeah, okay, I could just get a job at a gym or at a at a grocery store and get discounts and do this, and I'm like, okay, but then I'm on a schedule, like we were talking before about being self-employed and how you can take a week off or you can go on a vacation. I'm like, is that what I really want? Like what's going on here? And it brings you back to center, and ultimately like, no, there's nothing else I'd really want to do except for maybe maybe be a rock star or like a like a movie actor. Like, sure, but you know but hey, I'm actually working towards those a little bit. I'm doing some acting out here, and I do like to write music, but I'm not in the same place of like, is that way or the highway? I feel very, very grateful for what is.
Yeah. No, and I think it's something that just came up for me while you were saying that is like I think we oftentimes focus so much on what we do,
Yeah,
but what I actually heard from what you just said is like how we actually do it. And I
yeah,
think there's like something about the way you do what you do that is actually really fulfilling you. It's about the way. And so probably that has something to do with actually that enjoyment and that self-expression and the playfulness and the curiosity. And
mhm,
so if that now leads you maybe into some little acting gigs here or there, is like it might not be exactly the acting, because acting can also be very rigid and very much on schedule and is like very
yeah,
serious at times, But
yeah,
if there's some fun acting job that you can get into, or like a modeling job, or where it's just playful and where actually those qualities, those values, that you really care about, like this field of value that you kind of embedded yourself in, if those values are met, to me personally, I'm seeing more and more it doesn't really matter what it is that I do, but it needs
yeah,
to be aligned with those values.
yeah,
And for me it has just something to do with honesty and integrity and self-expression and intimacy, and mostly intimacy with myself. Funny
yeah,
enough, my name's Tim.
yeah.
Intimacy.
Intimacy. That's funny. I
It's
love
like
it.
literally being within Tim.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Intimacy.
Intimacy.
It is so true, man. It's what you bring to it, right? It's that quality and everything kind of behind it, and yeah, like acting stuff like that. I mean, I do see it as play, like I love it. I've done little bits here and there, and every time it lights me up. It's that same thing, and it's
Mm.
been my inner guiding light. Is the things that light me up. Those are the things that connect me to source, connect me to who I truly am, connect me to others in a buoyant way that I can see lights them up too and helps them to re-remember themselves as well. A cornerstone to veganism to me is seeing that light within everyone and everything, and like,
Mm.
going back to the identity and stuff, you can be so fixed on what you're doing and who you think you are and how others see you and, try and derive pleasure from it. But that's all fleeting. And it's those are things that are going to pull you from center if you're attached to them. When instead, if you see that inner light and you know in your heart that every single one, every single thing is deserving of love, is perfect as is, just by being, just by being is that like that light being that's a whole different thing because then,
Mm.
everything can fall aside and you still have that, and like, I don't know, to me, it's again, to me, a cornerstone of veganism and why I see animals and I just see love, I just see like perfection and, not being in the mindscape, just being in beingness, being 100% beingness. And I also see that in other people, like we can start to be up in arms because of the way different people think or their belief systems or whatever it may be. We're in a very, very divisive time, and or what
Hmm.
they eat, what they eat, we like up in arms and don't like them. And it's like, to me that's not veganism. It's seeing the inner light and honoring that and trying our best to focus on that, while recognizing we can have differences and there are things maybe we don't resonate with. There's always more that is important behind that we do connect with.
Mm.
'Cause we're all the same, at the base.
Mm. Mm. How would you how would you describe your essence? I mean, it's like it's difficult to put words to something, but like when you think about there's a harmony, there's like a perfection behind all things.
Yeah.
How would you describe your unique expression of that perfection?
When I'm truly in it is bubbling like childlike wonder and enjoyment and a little bit of whimsical curiosity and
Mm.
like I like to poke things sometimes and
Mm.
like you know I, kind of childlike silliness, I think, and it's kind of funny. Like I was just thinking before, I'm like, I'm almost 45. What the heck? Like I
Mm.
no, come on. Like I'm just a silly young man, but yeah, I would say that's what it is when I'm rooted in it. Like everyone, I get into my head and into my identity and into pressures I put on myself and all those things, and that's when I am more serious or judgmental or any of those things. And it's
Yeah.
letting go and coming back to that bubbling childlike wonder that brings me back to my essence.
That's beautiful. Yeah. How do you remind yourself of that nature, of your bubbling, whimsical, childlike nature? How do you come back to that when you are spending or when you catch yourself spending time in your mind, getting judgmental and putting pressure on yourself, life, others?
The main way is just to come back to the moment, right? I mean, and it's not always successful. Sometimes the mind trap is powerful enough that it's hard to be present in the moment. And
Mm.
but I try and just come into the moment, and what that looks like can be different. It can be
Mm.
like skateboarding has often been a way to do that, just to come really into the moment and into my essence. And sometimes though the mind trap doesn't allow me to do that, so I do my and then I can get frustrated at skateboarding and really bummed out and sad and but yeah, I think the main way is just trying to really come to the moment. Snoo has been really, really good with that, just being in the
Mm.
moment with someone cute and cuddly, I mean, that could be any relationship, but with Snoo and sitting and petting and purring, and that's really, really nice. Working out, taking a hot bath, like all these things that just give me the opportunity to really sink into what is right now, and that can dissolve everything else around it.
Mhm. So all those things that you name now, they have something to do with your body, actually. Like it's like really coming, like embodying your body, actually coming back into the one thing that exists in the present moment, right? Like because the mind that goes
Yeah,
past,
yeah.
future.
Is anything separated? I mean, that's the question, right? But
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, slowing down into the moment. Because I mean, that could be the body, or that could be what's another way of looking at it? Like just being present with what is. I don't even know if that's just body, mind, spirit, just being aligned with
Mm.
the present moment. But you are totally right that a lot of the times it is accompanied by bodily sensations to come more into the truth of the moment. So whether that's through the warm water or the warm fuzzy touch of Snoo, or doing
Mm.
something active. I've usually been more drawn to active meditation and activity that brings in that stillness rather than
Mm.
just sitting meditation, which for some people that's what they feel is the best. And I don't mind that sometimes, but I'm much more active meditation and attempting to see the entire life as a meditation. I mean, that's some people, they say like, they go to church once a week, and other people say like the world's my church. I look at the same kind of with meditation, like I like to try and bring a meditative uh, quality to everything I do as much as I
Hmm.
can.
Yeah.
Am I always successful? No, I slip out of that 100%, but that's the practice, for me, that's the practice.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful. Another thing that just came up for me is like those things you named, they all actually sound very simple. It's like petting your cat, going skateboarding, like sitting in a hot bath. It's like it's nothing that is really complex, or where a lot of aspects need to fit in, which what I can see is like that's what the mind oftentimes is like. If this happens correctly and that happens correctly, then I'm gonna be here and this and that and that's gonna be perfect. Where actually it's like petting Snoo in that moment, that's perfect. Or sitting in that hard path, that's perfect. And it's simple. And I realized that like simplifying things where it's like I used to always want like input, you
Yeah,
know? And I always thought that the more information I get into my system, the better I get at living this information.
yeah,
But actually, it was oftentimes just making my life a lot more complex than
yeah,
than it was because I
absolutely.
was putting layers on top of it rather than peeling it. And I love that movement because it's literally like
Yeah,
returning to the present is kind of peeling the layers of where am I actually? Like, am I actually right now here? It's like, no, that's not here. That's the past. Oh, that's the future. It's like, oh no, that's a fear. It's like, oh, I can feel the fear now. Oh, and now I'm getting closer to. I'm feeling the fear. Ooh, nice. Now I'm getting there. And then all of a sudden you can, no, or not all of a sudden. Like it's a gradual process, but we like to say all of a sudden, even though it's mostly not all of a sudden. It's just like gradually we return to like, oh,
yeah,
I'm here. I
yeah.
can feel like my heart pumping. I can feel like a breath entering my system and the breath leaving my system. I can feel that my buttocks is resting on the chair right now. I can see that Chris is sitting there, and then that's kind of like, oh, that's where life is happening.
It's,
It's
it's the
like
only place it is. I mean,
it's
peace is
like
right now. Life is right now. Love is right now. It's a reawakening, a remembering, a letting go, and a merging with what is. It's like, you know, you're so right. Like all the things that take us out of that are mind constructs. That again, there's a rhyme and reason and a use for all those, but more often than not, I think for me at least, it's been a journey of releasing and letting go. Like often thought and said that it's very common when we learn something new that we need to obsess about it in order to let it go. It's like once we
mm,
obsess about it enough, then we can just let it go completely, and it's like. Yeah, so often less is more. So often less is more.
yeah, yeah. Ah, it's a dance, man. It's a dance, and
That's it.
I loved our time together. Honestly, like I really enjoyed just talking with you. It didn't even feel like we recorded something, but
Yeah,
just like
that's really
hanging
good.
out and shooting thoughts back and forth and pieces of remembrance. Like it's really
Yeah.
beautiful, and that's I think another really important aspect that I find for me is so grounding is people, And even though it is just right now, we're not sitting in one room, we're just seeing each other on the screen, but even that is like it's beautiful. It's nice to see one another and to allow each other to be and to share and to accept one another. It's a beautiful gift that we have to interact with other people and to learn from one another. And so, yeah, I'm just really grateful for you making time and space for this conversation today, brother. It's really such a pleasure, such a pleasure.
Absolutely reciprocated. It's been a good dance, as you say. I love the dance of life. And there are some missteps that weren't missteps, but in the moment they feel like they are. And
Yeah.
it's all perfect in its place. I really do believe in that. Appreciate you and the opportunity to connect. It's like yeah, I think one of the great things about life is that, we sometimes need reminders and sometimes we're blessed to be able to give reminders. And,
Mm.
oftentimes I think that's what, really makes this world just so much lighter and more connected. Is like, when we're sometimes we can feel like I just want alone time, but so often it really is that connection that our soul is yearning for and a reminder to come back to self, and sometimes we do need that alone time to really deeply connect. But yeah, I think it is in coming together that we really get to see ourselves and share our gifts and it just feels amazing. It's good.
Yeah. I love my reflection that I see within you. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I understand what you're putting out there, brother. I absolutely, absolutely.
All right. Is there actually any last words or anywhere where you would like to direct listeners to? Is there anything that you're extremely excited about? A certain cause that you want to put out here? A certain project that you're working on?
Projects, stuff like that. I got a lot of fun stuff coming up. I'll just say that, stay tuned. I have a lot of really fun stuff coming up. Some that I've procrastinated in a long time.
Mhm.
Some that has just been uh, there's been roadblocks outside of my control that I've had to really haven't had to, but I've been given the opportunity to be patient with.
Mhm.
Uh, lots of fun stuff to come. So I'm really, really excited to share more this year. Controversial stuff and also just really practically useful stuff.
Mm.
Stepping into more of that. I've had fear around some controversial stuff, and it's time to let that go and share more. Um, and otherwise, I think just there's so much craziness in the world these days, and there are so many causes that are so worthy of bringing attention to. But I think, to me, the thing that's just resonating the most is that peace is found within, and just like
Mm.
focusing on ourselves and bringing that quality to our life so that we can reflect that out and hopefully bring more peace and understanding and connection in the world we see around us. Because yeah, I think it's just a potent time for that kind of a shift.
Mm. I love that, man. Thank you so much. Thank you for being a beacon of peace and of playfulness and of self-expression and curiosity and all the things that you bring out in the world. It's beautiful, and you're an inspiration every time when you pop up in my Instagram feed. I remember, oh, true. Those kind of accounts also exist where it's like it's really fun, where it's like not about like, oh my God, we gotta get somewhere. It's like, no, we're here and we can enjoy that. So thank you so much for your presence. Thank you so much for your doing that I really feel like is so much aligned with your being and allowing that to be an extension of you. And yeah, man, it's an honor and a pleasure to be in touch with you. And I hope we will continue that contact and that friendship and yeah, connection moving forward.
Feel it, brother. Thanks for seeing me, and I reciprocated out. Really appreciate it and the time and the opportunity to connect with everyone here. Hey guys, you're here. Hey, we're not just talking to each other. We're talking to you too. I hope this connects. Have some fun. Take it a little bit easy. Take life easy. It doesn't have to be so serious, right?
Beautiful, man. Thank you so much. Thank you.
There we go. There we go. Wishing you much peace, love, and seasonal fruit.
Bye bye.
See you guys.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Everyday Ceremony. If you were able to get something out of it, or it just brought you some joy, some inspiration, some empowerment, make sure to give us a 5-star rating so that we can grow this show organically and bring it to an ever-growing audience. And also share it with individuals who you think could really benefit from this episode. I'm so grateful to have you as a part of this journey. I wish you a wonderful day, and I see you in the next episode. Bye bye.